Ladies on Reddit, what are red flags you can't ignore in men? Never apologizing. Ignorant arrogance. Doesn't seem capable of changing his mind or seeing other perspectives. Arrogance breeds ignorance, which in turn breeds stupidity. Quote. When they cannot discuss sexual health like an adult. If you're having sex, you need to discuss birth control, condoms, and STDs. Recently had STD talk with 48 male. He tells me he's never been tested for anything. Says he's just choosy about who he sleeps with, so he knows he's never had anything because he would be able to tell if his partners had an STD. This from a sexually active man that doesn't use condoms often. I was stunned that anyone could still be this ignorant. When they have to always one-up you. Easily lost patience and out of control temper over minor things. I dated a guy once who had an argument over the phone with a family member. After he got off the phone, he picked up a picture frame that was nearby and just smashed it onto the ground, sending glass everywhere. The argument was something to do with a book. We had been dating for maybe 2 months. He was 26. Massive red flag that one as was. When I worked at KFC, there was a girl whose boyfriend would stay parked outside the door during her entire shift. That is not something I've seen commonly, and it's a huge red flag. That happened with a girl I worked with as well. She worked 12-hour shifts and he would sit outside looking in at her for the 12 hours. Then sometimes he'd come in like a sad puppy talking to her. Genuinely pathetic and psycho. If they always need to be right. I talked to a guy who would unsend messages on Instagram if he said something wrong in them. You look smarter if you concede and say, "Oh, I was mistaken." If they have a kid, not being involved in their kid's life and making excuses why they can't be. And when every ex they have is crazy, but they can't admit to any toxicity of their own in any relationship ever. I matched with this guy once. We're only on day 2 of talking via text. He mentions he has a daughter. It wasn't on his profile. I stated I wasn't interested. I'm child-free by choice and don't want to get involved with someone with a kid. He said, "Well, I never see her anyways. Psycho X got the courts to say I couldn't, so it's not a problem." Bro, that's way worse. Inconsistent. All words, no actions. Love bombing in the beginning. Being mean to the pets. Never tolerate your partner being cruel to your pets. If you're cruel to creatures small, those without a voice at all, those who look to you above, those who only want your love, if you're foul to pals in fur, those who bark and those who purr, those devoted, faithful friends, those on whom my heart depends, if you're mean to such as these, if you injure, taunt or tease, if you hurt my faithful few, I will go John Wick on you. When he keeps talking about his ex and how he'll never love someone else this much. That seems like a flaming flag for any gender, not just men. Just putting this out there. The usual red flags are so consistent you can set your watch to them. A good yardstick is to look at your relationship from the outside. If your sister, best friend, mother's boyfriend did X to her, would you be concerned? Self-awareness is important because sometimes you're too close to the situation to see it objectively. Not respecting it, no. Not taking it well if they don't get their way. Not taking it well if you disagree with them. Talking about women, relationships as if women are a prize, reward, object rather than a person. Making you feel uncomfortable. Trying to pressure you to drink more, take drugs, not just offering, but trying to talk or pressure you into it if you're reluctant. Anger issues. Not being supportive of your feelings. Had been talking to a guy on a dating app for a couple of weeks, even FaceTimes with him, went for first date in a pub for a meal. Got there, he was already there. He came over to me, chatted for a couple of minutes at the bar. He mentioned he was already seated at the table, with his mother, like that red flag could be seen in several alternative dimensions. She was all excited to be there, even cancelled some other evening out she was meant to be going to come on this date, also stated that when son couldn't be bothered to message me she had replied. I calmly finished my drink, looked him square in the eye, directed him to the local maternity unit and told him to ask the midwives to cut the umbilical cord this time and left. Just so you know, I was early 50s, still am, and he was late 50s, so not kids. That was the biggest red flag I'd even seen. Blocked him, and technically her, on everything immediately. I have read this over like 5 times and I'm still saying out loud, what the actual fuck? When every single ex they have was crazy. Lack of communication. A relationship cannot work if you can't communicate wants, needs, goals, boundaries, etc. I've dated too many guys who just say they're bad at talking, and then don't really make an effort to really improve. It's really difficult to have a healthy relationship when someone just shuts down, changes subjects, dodges conversations that need to happen. Unhealthy dependency on my replies. Before I met my current I was chatting to a guy who needed replies within minutes. If I didn't reply in 30 minutes, he'd start saying things like, "She's gone again." Or, "And I've lost her interest again." It became like a chore to respond. When I said I didn't feel comfortable continuing the conversation, he started talking about how women never gave him a chance, and he is a good man. It might not seem to him he had ill intent, but it came across as controlling and pressuring. I had to block him eventually as he kept on messaging even though I had requested to stop the communication. Later he started sending paid likes on a dating platform to get my attention. Pushing or neglecting boundaries. If they don't care to respect the silly ones, they're certainly going to waltz across the serious ones. Being totally inept when it comes to household management, cooking, cleaning, bills, laundry, etc. I dated a guy who lived alone and was able to do all of that. When we moved in together, he expected me to take care of everything while he sat on his ass and did nothing to help out. Needless to say, I dumped him not long afterwards. Men. This is not the 1950s, household chores are not women's work, and you are expected to do your share. The one where they say, "I'm not like other men," and proceed to be worse than any man I've ever met. They didn't lie. I'm not like other men. I'm worse. Not for me personally, because I'm married and didn't date much, but one I see all the time for other women, or when their significant other talks about them like a child. Anytime I hear a man talking about giving his wife an allowance or telling his girlfriend she can't have something until she finishes some chore, it enrages me on her behalf. It's weird. I always start trying to telepathically tell her to get out of there. Additionally, I hate the same behavior in women. He's a grown-ass man, don't treat him like he's 10. Respect your partner. When he's so focused on what he has to say, can't wait to tell you things that happened to him, and is never actually listening to you or waiting for you to finish. Usually means they're too much into themselves and could never volute and hear you as a real you. Also, that they're probably only superficially attracted to you and they're not even trying to know you. Then OFC, why would you need them in your life? Claiming they're an alpha male. Yeah, as a straight guy, seeing guys trying to act alpha is the most surefire way for me to lose all respect. That's not to say that there aren't low and high status guys, there are. But those alphas are insecure losers trying to overcompensate 100% of the time. Terrible people to be around. When they're constantly drinking. Like they get home from work and proceed to drink themselves into passing out wherever they are in the house and don't see it as a bad thing because they're allowed to have a drink at night. When they stop at a store on their way home and the priority is a bottle of alcohol and they don't even consider getting anything for dinner. That's not a flag, that's a billboard. Not respecting your boundaries. No means no, guys. It doesn't mean keep begging and or manipulating until I say yes. Red flags I will never ignore again. All my exes are crazy. They hate me for some reason, ha ha ha. I've just never been great at talking. I don't know what to say, so just shuts down and you can never have any kind of important conversation with them. And one I know should have been glaringly obvious, but I was 26 and insanely in love. The next time someone raises their hand to me, I'll be out of there. If I set a clear boundary and someone crosses it willingly proclaiming they're only joking. If I tell you directly what I don't want or like and you still decide your idea of funny is more important, I'm out. My boundaries are no joke. When he talks over me, that tells me that he thinks he's more important than me and or what I have to say is less important. Not hearing me out is not acceptable. Weaponized incompetence. Making no attempt at doing something effectively in the hopes that they won't be asked to do it again. If you can't put in the effort, then neither can I. If they use the silent treatment. It's a way of removing yourself from what should likely be an open and fair discussion about an issue. It's either a sign of immaturity or desire to manipulate and control. It's okay to want some time away, to cool down after a fight, but say that then, if that's what it is. If his last girlfriend tries to earnestly warn you, she may actually be warning you. I wouldn't call it a red flag per se, but it's a thing I'm noticing more and more. 100%, if you are feeling unwanted and unloved, and are thinking about breaking up, and then you try to bring it up and all of a sudden he starts being everything you wanted, to only go back to being distant and cold. You have yourself a love bomber. It's awful. The amount of people who fall for this is sad. 'Cause some people just get caught in this vicious cycle not knowing it's even happening. When he says how many girls are after him,